All right, for this particular video, we're going to go back into our rational expressions. And then this time, we're going to simplify a complex rational expression by writing it as division. So what do I mean by a complex rational expression? Well, that's when we have, as you can see here, the fraction within a fraction. So let's change this color to something we can use so it's easier to see. So the first thing when trying to write this as division is, well, basically you've got to factor everything in both numerator and denominator. So I'm going to go through, keep this as a complex fraction for now, and I'm going to rewrite this as x plus 1 times x minus 1 divide by 3 divided by x plus 1. All right, so rewriting this as division just means this is a step that you will most likely skip over in the future, but you're going to write this as a division problem. So we just rewrite what we have as the numerator and then divide it by whatever the denominator is. So 3 divided by x plus 1. So now we know division is nothing more than just multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to have 2 divided by the factors of x plus 1, x minus 1, and then I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal here. So the x plus 1 goes into the numerator, and the 3 is then in the denominator. And like we've done with all of our others, we're going to now simplify by eliminating these x plus 1's, because x plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is just going to give me 1. And there's nothing else here that I can do anything with. Like I can't simplify the 2 and the 3. They have no common factors. The x minus 1 is just all lonely by itself. So we have 2 is the only thing in the numerator. We have the 3, and then we have the x minus 1. So all we've done is just did like we were doing with the other types of problems where we would go through, factor everything, rewrite division as multiplication, and simplify. So this one's not too bad because of the fact that it only has just one fraction divided by another fraction. But when we transition to something that's even more complex, such as this example, so now I've got to take a look at what we have, and I see that we've got addition and subtraction in both numerator and denominator. So before I can do anything with that, we need to get common denominators within the top fraction and common denominators within the bottom fraction. All right, so in the numerator, my common denominator is going to be an n plus 5. So what I need to do in the numerator of the overall fraction, remember I've got an n, and technically the n is divided by 1. So I need an n plus 5 to be introduced here, because I need to get common denominators, because my other fraction already has an n plus 5 in it. If I look in the denominator, this is going to be part of my common denominator. This is completely different, so that's going to be part of my common denominator. So what I need to do is multiply by the other factor here in both numerator and denominator, so I get common denominators. So 1 divided by n plus 5 is going to be multiplied by n minus 5 divided by n minus 5. Then we'll add that to, well, we already have an n minus 5 over here, and what I need is n plus 5 and n plus 5. All right, so what we've done is we've just gone through and created common denominators so I can now deal with the addition and subtraction in each. All right, so if I look in the numerator here, I'm going to distribute that n, and then I'm going to subtract 4n, so I'm just going to rewrite it. So I get n squared plus 5n minus 4n, all of which is divided by the n plus 5. That's just the numerator of the bigger fraction. So now we divide by, so here I'm going to have n minus, oops, that's supposed to be a minus, so let me make that adjustment there. So n, bring the pen back in, so n minus 5, And then remember, the whole denominator is going to be the n plus 5, n minus 5, because we've got it in both. So I need n plus 5, n minus 5. So we have the n minus 5 that's been introduced here, plus whatever is introduced in the numerator over here. So I had a 1 times n plus 5, so n plus 5. All right, that's a huge fraction. I got to clean it up now. So equals, so we'll deal with the larger overall fraction. My numerator, I got to clean that up. I'm going to get n squared plus n when I combine these. And then the denominator of the numerator is n plus 5. Now looking at the numerator of my denominator, I have n minus 5 plus n plus 5. So that's just going to give me 2n. Then I need the denominator of my denominator, which is n plus 5, n minus 5. All right, so we're running out of room, so I got to move it over to here. Now, we said before when we were doing the other example that, remember, right, division is nothing more than multiplying by the reciprocal. Well, this is the division symbol in a fraction form. So therefore, I'm going to rewrite this now as n squared plus n divided by n plus 5 times the reciprocal of the denominator. So that means that up here we're going to have an n plus 5, n minus 5, and then 2n because we flipped it. All right, I'm also going to have to now, so I can simplify, I've got to see if there's anything else that I can factor. Now I could have factored here and rewritten this whole thing again with the factored form, but I just decided to wait. Does it matter? Not at all. So looking here, I've got to take an n out. So I have n times n plus 1 divided by n plus 5. Now I like to put these in parentheses even though we don't need to. It's just one of those things. Times n plus 5, n minus 5, all divided by 2n. All right, so let's now, what can we get rid of because it's in both factors or both the products here? So I've got n plus 5, n plus 5, those will divide out to 1. This n with this n, and then there's nothing else I can do. So now I go back to rewriting what we have, and I have an n plus 1 and I have an n minus 5 in the numerator. And then in the denominator, that's gone, the n's gone. The only thing that I'm left with is just 2. All right. So again, the process, I go through and I get common denominators here. So that's got to be the first thing that we do. We find the common denominator. We add those fractions together within the numerator and the denominator. Once we do that, then after we have our common denominators, we combine those fractions in the numerator and the denominator. Then we go through and do the actual division like it says. And remember, division is nothing more than multiplying by the reciprocal. So I have to reciprocate that. Then we ended up factoring so we could see if we could simplify any of the factors that are involved. All right, so there's two examples. There'll be another series of videos. This is one way, going through and using it with division. Another way is using the least common denominator, and you'll see that next. But as usual, thank you very much. This is Robert Main, math teacher at Charahoe High School. Hopefully this was helpful, useful, and helps you move forward in your math career.